good evening, and welcome to this edition of A Walk Down Memory Lane. I'm your host, Earl Baston, and joining me, co-host Dennis Brown, and our guests this evening include Wendell Smith, Alan Richardson, and Dexter Smith, three former cup match players for St. George's Cricket Club. And tonight, we're going to talk just that, cricket. Dennis, very interesting as you sit here, kind of like in my shoes sometimes, surrounded by St. George's guys, when I'm usually surrounded by Somerset guys. But tonight should be very interesting as we have three gentlemen that opened the batting for St. George's in cup match. Obviously, partnerships and relationships are built off of working together, especially to start an inning. And we'll start off with Wendell. Wendell, when did you make your debut in the Classic?
Good evening, first of all, Earl, and good evening, Dennis, and to my two folks who are joining me, Alan and Dexter. Good evening, and good evening to the listening audience. I commenced my cup match career in 1976. That was the year that I remember The Deep was being filmed in Bermuda, and after cup match, they allowed us to do some behind-the-scenes filming with a number of people, so that was quite memorable. But in that team, I was reminding you, there were people like Lloyd James, Dennis Wainwright, Clarence Parfitt, Neville Darrow, Rupert Scotland, Alden Rayner, etc.
Alan, let me ask you, when was your first cup match?
You know, when I was saying to myself, I hope he doesn't ask me that, because to be very honest, I couldn't give you the exact time. And the reason being, Earl, and I know cup match was a huge thing, but to me, after playing County Cup and witnessing and being a part of County, even to this day, it gives me chills. I really, it didn't really impact me in that I remember the day. In actual fact, I couldn't even remember when I was the man of the match and when we won. We actually won the cup back. I have to listen to that. So I'm thinking 70, 79 maybe, 78.
79 was the year we lost.
Okay, 77. I played 2 years before that.
Okay.
And myself too. And listening to Wendell, I didn't realize how long Wendell had played. Lionel Thomas, Clarence Parfitt, Neville Darrow was my skipper. Rupert Scotland, Noel Gibbons, Alden Rayner, Arnold Manders, Alan Douglas, and myself. We were Colts, and Clevey and Wendell was there. So I'm in the same category as Wendell, just a few years gone.
Okay. All right. And Dexter, when did you make your first appearance at the Classic?
Well, first of all, I'm shocked that Alan Richardson can't remember his debut.
I mean,
geez.
Here we go.
But anyway, for me, it was 1993 in St. George's. I came into the St. George's team with Lionel Can, so we were coaching the same year. I would say we dominated that game, my coach match. Captain was Wendell was injured. He did his knee again, and Graham Fox took over the captaincy, and we had what we would like to call a winning draw.
And Earl, if I could mention something about that year that I injured my knee, on the Sunday after cup match, I played in the match versus Western Stars. But my point was, I didn't feel that if a player was not 100%, they shouldn't be participating in the biggest Classic of Bermuda. So obviously I could have strapped it up or taken a cortisone shot and played, but I felt that would be selfish. And such was the case of that era where, you had so many good players that people like Arnold have told me he's been dropped about 3 times. And you see Alan Richardson's chomping at the bit to talk about players who have been dropped. So go ahead, Alan.
No, it's funny you should mention Arnold, because Arnold and I, we used to boast about who was dropped the most, and I was dropped twice, but on the third time it was for good. But I think he has the edge over me. We always used to compliment each other. He says, "Oh, gee, you have the record." No, I have the record now. No, I think he has it.
Dennis, you want to jump in?
Yeah, good night, guys. It's a pleasure to have all of you on the show. I wouldn't say it was a pleasure watching you guys torment Somerset over the years. You guys were some of the legends of Cup Match. The partnership. I mean, it's ironic that all of you were opening batsmen. Um, my preference is leftists. I used to be a lefty myself, so welcome Dexter Vandal. But it was a pleasure watching you guys. Like I say, a torment Somerset. In the 70s and the 80s. Um, you guys were to me what a lot of the young openers today should be trying to emulate. Um, and we'll get into that as the show goes along. But I like to get into before I get into to cup match. I want to know how you guys and this questions for all of you. How did cricket start for Randall, Allen, and Dexter like as a youngster? How did it cricket backyard? What how did cricket start for you guys? And then I'll get into my cup match questions because I have a
You can start, Dexter.
Well, mine was quite interesting. Obviously, it was primary school cricket. I was pretty much. I'm a bit of a traveler in my early years, all over Rebecca Town. In certain parts of Rebecca Town, football dominated cricket. And such was the case in North Village. So if you guys are familiar with the North Village area, Glebe Road heading toward Roberts Avenue, it was predominantly a football territory. But I was fortunate enough to have as my own background Pigs Field. You remember it was the victim of arson not so recently,
yeah.
um, and there were two fields there. One was concrete, and then you go down to where the horses train, and that was sort of like dirt. That's what we use for football. And a lot of my cricket grounding was there. I sort of like I was late bloomer in terms of knowing about cup match, and because I was a new boy in the area, St George's were dominating cup match at that time. So we're talking like the mid to late '60s. Um, I was anointed a Somerset fan, right? Because they needed someone to go against, right? And
Oh,
so I was
oh,
anointed a Somerset fan, and I never really knew what that meant and what came with it, but I just knew I was the butt of the jokes when it came to cup match time. And strangely enough, I spent some summers or parts of some summers up in Somerset, and I recall running around Somerset Cricket Club, and you know where you park the bikes, Dennis, that
yes,
little area,
in the patio,
right?
patio.
Yeah, so I recall playing some cricket
A
and some
lot of cricket
football.
was played on there. Yeah,
Exactly, with Caddy Simmons,
yep, yep,
the Simmons boys,
yep.
and my first cup match trial, or at least invitation cup match trial, was at Somerset when I was barely 14 or 15. Shiraz Ali, if you recall him,
Yep.
the left arm spinner, he invited me up to be in his team because in those days you had key players who would provide the opposition for either St George's or Somerset, and it would be their 11 versus St George's or Somerset. So this was meant to be the Shiraz Ali 11, and we didn't have social media and smartphones in those days. So you have a kid by now. I had moved to Kirvin Avenue, different part of Becker Town, and I made my way up to Somerset for this trial match because you never know if it's going to come again. And it rained from the start of the journey to the end of the journey, and the only person who bloody well was there, sorry for my language, Earl, the only person who was there was this 14, 15-year-old from Kirvin Avenue, right? No one else. And that was my last experience with Somerset. And after that, obviously, it was all St George's. A lot of familiarity with Randall and Alan because we were in high school together. So I got to watch them as an opening pair and watch them bat and admire them from a distance initially before I got to play with them some more as we became adults.
Mm. Alan?
Yeah, my jeez. I grew up cricket. Everything was cricket in St. David. You either fished or you played cricket. And I went out once, 10 years old. I got seasick and I never went out anymore after that. And I'll be 64 this year. But it was cricket, man. Everything was cricket.
Shameful as an Islander.
And, and it was interesting. Anthony Painter and I went primary school together. He reminded me the other day when he was scoring on the Cunny game, and in 1969 we won the primary school cricket championship. We played St. George's Preparatory. I think Clevie Wade played for them then over in Wellington. We were trying to figure whether Rundle was there or not, but I don't think Rundle was playing for them. And after school, growing up in Texas Road, you could tell that's a real St. David's Island, Texas Road. Man, we used to play cricket from sun up to sundown, tennis ball cricket, and I always played against the older guys. And man, it just amazed me how quick they could bowl that tennis ball. And then also growing up, and I spent soon as school was out, home down on the cricket field, and County Cup played had a huge impact in my life for cricket, because it was like. I guess if you are a musician growing up and you go to a Michael Jackson concert, you go to a famous concert, and it's just spellbinding. And County Cup for me was spellbinding, because at one time, if you remember, I mean, County Cup to a certain extent rivaled Cup match as far as spectators. And it was just mind blowing. And then I also had an uncle, my family, my uncle Calvin Richardson, late Calvin Bunny Richardson. He played for St. George's as an opening bat as well. And then you had a plethora. Randall, you like that word? You had a plethora of cricketers. I mean, top-notch cricketers. They I mean, I was in love with cricket. And to this day, I'm in love with cricket. So I played cricket all my life. My family loves cricket. My mom used to love cricket. She would even call me from time to time, even when she was at the old folks' home. She'd call me and say, "Hey, Alan, don't forget, cricket is coming on," and so forth. But cricket was my life growing up, bro.
Randall?
And
Just before you go, Randall, it's plethora, Alan. Please.
Well, I done that just to make sure you were listening, and because I knew you would try to correct me and make me look bad, but I figured that. So I'm glad you done that. Thank you, Earl. I appreciate it.
May I have my time, please?
I'll let you do that on your own.
Thank you. I'll give you a warning. Don't ever try to put Alan in his place, because he's always ready with the comeback. Thank you, Alan. Anyway, Earl, I'll try again. My beginnings were at St. George's Prep, and I played with a team that included Clevie Wade, Stevie Dixon, Delvin Minus, Dana Minus, Kern Reed, and we actually won the league, I guess the year after St. David's, because we played Elliott and they only scored about 28, I think it is, and so it was a walk in the park. But we used to play a lot of cricket in my yard, and we used to bowl from only about 10 yards. And so we had a little door that was about 2 feet high. That was a wicket. But I can remember one day we put the stove on to boil up some grease to make some homemade fries, and Clay and I forgot it. And while we were playing cricket, we burnt down my mother's kitchen. The fire trucks had to come. The cabinets, the whole kitchen was done. And we had a gathering this week with my family, and I was telling my brother that I was very surprised my mother didn't give us a really good whipping, because we actually the fire department had to come down and everything was black. And then another time I remember we used to boil rubber balls in the porch, and a couple of times we broke window panes. So that was the extent of our love of cricket, that we would play indoors, but lots of tennis ball cricket. I would say also what impacted me the most was when I was 14, 2 instances. Once, when I was 14, I got to score for Joel Brown and Winston J.R. Jones up at Rangers, and I watched this gentleman named Colin Blades bat, and I just marveled at his cover driving, how he would just hit everything along the carpet and pierce the field, and I could tell that his cerebral processes were in place, because he used to stick his pad down to defend. So it made me realize that you'd get less LBWs if you were going down the pitch in those days, because there was no Hawkeyes or on the front foot, you tended to not get out much. But I just love to watch Colin Blades bat and kind of model my game after. Then I guess the biggest impact after that was one day at Wellington Oval, Clarence Parfitt gave me a tip, and it made me realize you need to be quiet and listen to these legends of cricket. He said, Wendell, you're falling over with your head. If somebody builds your Yorker down by your toes, you're going to be in trouble. He walked back down the other end and said, let me show you what I'm talking about. And he pulled the ball right there and clean bowled me. Down by my toes, leg stump going. So I realized, okay, time to listen. And so I just picked up tips from Lloyd James about how to sometimes turn your feet towards cover, to play down the leg side bat, and all these little tips. But that was my start at St. George's Prep. And the first game I can remember, Dennis Wainwright said, if you make 10 runs, I'll give you my bet. And he used to sandpaper these beautiful bets. But I got a dock, so I didn't make it.
But we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, Dennis, you get into your second lot of questions. We'll be right back.
We're welcoming back the often featured Whole Food veterans Bragg Live Food Products, renowned for their live probiotic organic raw cider vinegar and savory seasonings. Paul Bragg is the man behind the products that has originated health food stores, restaurants, and spas, and promoted nutrition education through the media, helping lay the foundation for the enlightened way we make healthful choices when we shop for and prepare food. This month we're featuring Bragg Organic Raw and Unfiltered Apple Cider Vinegar and Organic Extra Virgin Olive Oil. Lindos, why go anyplace else?
Welcome back.
This question to everyone again. Just watching you guys over the years play cricket and bat. All of you were known to be patient batsmen, but also can light up the scoreboard as well. So where did that patience come from? Because I'm going to also ask a question later on about 2020 versus open cricket. So where did that patience come from? And then, once you get steady and that ball look like a basketball, I know at times, you know what I mean? So where did that patience come from?
Alan?
Well, okay, thank you. I'm glad you asked me in that round because I am the lead commentator and I should be asked first. But nevertheless, when I look at Dexter and when I look at Randall, and I look at somebody like Ricky Hill. He's the one that really comes to mind. I look at Clay. I was never blessed with fluent stroke play unless I was in for some time. So that hindered me. I didn't have a lot of strokes, but I played to my strength. And also during that time, and I think the other two will attest, I mean, you had such good bowlers, man. I mean, you very rarely got anything slack. So I spent so much of my time developing my defense that my stroke play, survival, because I was very young. I mean, I played my first county game when I was the age of 14 against Bailey's Bay. So I was so busy, building my defense and trying to survive rather than be extravagant. So that for me was where the patience came in, to be quite honest. When I look back in my earlier years, it was, I tried to get in the team as a youngster, and a lot of people at that time, I remember quite vividly, they would say, I would think of Wilbur, Vernon Fogo, Byes, and all these guys. They were saying, make sure you build your defense. Make sure you build your defense because most of your attacking strokes come off the back foot or the front foot. And if you're playing on a front foot defense, you can turn that into a front foot cover drive or so forth, going back on the back foot. You can punch it off the back foot. You can defend it off the back foot. So I spent so much time doing that. And then also I think by being, my other point is I just wondered what type of batsman I would have developed into if I had someone like Randall or Dexter, Glenn Lightning, opening up with me, and I could free up a bit more rather than being the mainstay. And you are the one I was constantly drilling. You have to stay to the record, Alan. You have to bat the innings. So that's where all my patience came in. But not only that, in order to have, as it looks like patience, I think what develops patience is your mental attitude. That's what's important, because I was out there many times, everybody screaming at me, hit the ball, hit the ball, hit the ball. But I had to have enough mental application to be there for my team. And then the other thing to go with that is the fitness. You have to be I think as well. You know that fitness plays a part in developing those patients.
Earl, if I could segue onto that, Alan, I would totally agree with you about the fitness, because back in those days, when I'm talking about the early 70s, I would get up and run like 10 laps of Wellington Oval. And then I had the blessing of having Charlie Marshall become my neighbor for a couple of years. And we would leave Slip Road up by the Western Gate where that white wall is and run down through Barracks Hill, Fort St. Catherine, Tobacco Bay, over the hill, back through the golf course and back. And after doing that every morning, your fitness became such that it was a breeze to go out to the airport and back. But why I really like that question, Dennis, about patience, because I think it is of paramount importance. And I say that because one of the things that I preached to our players just a couple of weeks ago in a meeting before cup matches, value your wicket. And I sometimes wonder if the modern day players do that. And why I say that is because, again, I go back to Colin Blades, but I also think of Albert Steed. These guys, when you're playing against them, you really treasure getting their wicket, because Albert very rarely gave his wicket away when you had to earn it. And I realized that I would value my wicket and make people feel as if they had to pry me out and I wasn't going to give my wicket away, because too often today I think players are quick to give their wicket away. So if you're training super hard like that, and also here's the other basic point. In cricket, if you lose the toss, let's say you're fielding, and you're out in that hot sun, that's, if you would agree, from 10 o'clock to 3:30, and you're out there for 3 or 4 hours, when it's your turn to bed, you want to maximize your opportunity, because why field out for 3.5, 4 hours and then go out and get out in 10 minutes? So I think it comes from the desire to value your wicket and make players earn your wicket. Because the other key thing about cricket is this: you have the opportunity to bat for 3 and 4 hours. And see, in other sports like basketball and most team sports, baseball, things like that, you're getting a hit very rapidly, and then the next person's in. But one mistake and you're out. And realizing that, you have to have really good concentration to avoid making that mistake.
Real quickly, well, before Dexter jumps in, I want to tell you something about Wendell. When we used to play the county cup, the captain would win the toss. He would come down and change his look, guys, we won the toss. And the wicket could be hard as rock. Wendell says, look, I think the wicket's a little dent. We better feel first. And you know why? Because he knew around 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock, more people will come in, and he wanted more people to come in to see him back. Take it away, Dexter.
It started, Dexter.
Well,
that's a true story. Go ahead, Dexter.
See, remember I said something about providing effects, but I don't know if you can do that. And in any event, in terms of the patience thing, my story is slightly different in that at a young age I was my late godfather Sammy Wilson, which you guys would probably be familiar with from PYC days. He bought me a bat. It was a man's bat. It was heavy, but I was so proud of this bat that I used it. And what it meant was that I could not play any kind of horizontal shot. It meant that I needed to play up into the V for everything. So, which Wendell may or may not comment on later. So anything short had to be left, wide had to be left. Anything extravagant, and I spent a lot of those earlier years just focusing on one area, keeping the ball out, having a good eye. I like to think that I had a good eye. I trained 12 months a year with ball sports. So if it wasn't cricket, it was table tennis. So that helped to drill in that hand-eye coordination. And then as I graduated to lighter bats, I was able to broaden the range of stroke while being mindful, with sort of like alluding to what Alan mentioned. The more shots you have, the more ways you can get out, right? And the role, and in those days we were playing open cricket. We were playing, in some instances, 2 innings cricket. That's how I started. My debut was when we were playing 2 innings cricket Saturday and Sunday. made debut up at Royal Naval Field against tall West Indian fast bowlers for Police. Oliver Bain comes to mind. But it meant that yes, the wicket had to be valued. You had to set a platform for those who are more expressive coming behind you, because it is a team game. And then once you've done that, and some will say, okay, you can get out of the way now and let the people, the ones that people come to see bat. But you feel you've not done your job unless the first thing, mandatory thing to do is see that shine off the ball, because I think most bowlers, even the top bowlers that we had then, apart from the spinners, they lost their effectiveness once that ball lost some of its hardness and some of its shine.
Well, let's talk a little bit about partnerships, because obviously, Wendell, you got a chance to bat with both of these gentlemen. One of the innings that comes to mind, one of the most memorable ones, would be that Eastern County Day at Lords, where you guys put on that racket stand. And I want to know what the conversation was like when Wendell, you got run out, right?
To be honest with you, I don't even remember how I got out that day.
The ball came from the boundary, and you were
It was thrown from the club end, and
you were going towards the Lord's
cruise. Yes, and the ball.
Oh, Earl, how you remember that, Earl?
Yeah, that's brilliant, because you're talking about a number of years ago.
So what was that conversation? Because obviously Alan would have seen the ball coming, but never turned around to you.
And never warned me, like, watch out, Wendell, because he figured it was his time to, get all the glory.
And you know what? Hey, Earl, you know why he and a couple of years later, my cup match career was cut short. I said, Wendell, why am I dropped from the team? He said, you remember when you caused me to get run out? I said, okay, thank you.
Dexter, you talked about people who can play with the truth, but we'll leave it at that. But to talk about the partnership, I'm going to be honest. It was a treat to bet with both of you guys, and I'm not somebody who gives kudos out lightly,
especially to me.
But anyway, Alan, the truth is, and one thing you often talk about that is so true when we commentate, is the quality of some of the pace bowling. You're talking about Terry Burgess, who had a big end swinger to the left-handers. Pace Edwards, who I can remember once, a ball at Wellington Oval whizzing past my nose and the crowd making a noise. Al James, who bowled a ball up Somerset at the Lopes Garden end that cut through your afro, because back then, Dennis, he liked to be fashionable, so he had about a 4-inch high afro. and anyway, but to be honest, the person who I feared most back then, fortunately played for St. George's, and that was Adrian King, because I used to have to stand way back in slips, and he was lightning fast. But Daxter, Alan was a much more patient player. The one innings I most remember with Daxter was at Wellington Oval in a cup match game where I think we put on 100 decks. And what I can remember, the next week after the game, Sad Brown said to me, do you guys realize there were hardly any singles in that match? And it was a case of we were putting the bad balls away. And something you said, Alan, is so true, that each year I try to add one stroke to my repertoire. The shot that I can remember learning that year was the on drive or mid-wicket drive on a ball on my pads. And of course, Rodney Fubler bowled me in swinger. So the minute he came down on my legs, I could just clip him through that short boundary over by the little blue canteen there. So Daxter was a more dashing player. I can remember his off drives in particular. Alan's best shot I think was probably your cutting, Alan. You like to cut a lot, but Alan was the more patient one. Daxter was the one who would wait for what he liked and really dispatch it. But it was a pleasure betting with both of them. I guess the biggest difference was Daxter was very, very serious about everything, just like he is tonight. You see him look focused even on this, when it looks like he's got half his mind on whether he's got to finish the story. But with Alan, Alan knew how to break the stress level, because we're up there. Coach Rutt's swinging the ball like 3 feet, and then Al James is blowing bunches, and then Horton, of course, with his burly manner, coming down growling at you. So Alan, at the end of the over, comes down to me, and I say, "What advice is he going to give me?" And he says, "Wendell, check that number down by the side screen in the yellow." And of course, that just took the pressure off, and I could relax and laugh, and we went on together. But that's the only bit of banter I'm going to have tonight. But that's a definite true story.
That's not true, Wendell. Stop it.
I thought that was off limits. I really did, but
that's the truth. It
Nothing
took my.
off
It,
limits.
that's the. You know how you sometimes have to say things to ease the pressure of the moment, and they tell you to breathe or step away from the wicket, and just especially if guys are giving you sledge, and that was Alan's way of just calming me down and just taking my mind off the big in swingers of Coach Rutt.
okay, fair enough.
But I think so, Earl. Also, going back to that very same innings, and that's probably one of the best opening part. Well, as far as runs, definitely for Wanderline. We had a good understanding as well, and I remember him coming down to me. I think Gary Brangman was bowling, and he came down to me and says, "Look, Gary's just beating me outside." So I said, "Okay, I'll go down that end and I'll take care of him." And I just went down there and blocked and blocked and blocked. I must have had once I started blocking, after about an hour, I may have had maybe 5 or 6 runs. Wendell had 50. All these people running on the field, giving them money and everything. And I'm down there blocking and he's firing away. But what that done for me, that, once I got my eye in, once I got set, because it took a while to get I just went along. In fact, I think I got the 160 odd that day, a rounding up of 140. The other thing I also want to be cognizant of and aware of is that I was playing. I with Steve, man. We were playing County Cup. I think Albert needed, 8 runs for his century, and we needed, I think, about 9 runs to win. And I told him, I said, if I hit the ball for a single, I'm not running. Now, if you hit it and we can get 2, I'll go. If you hit a single, I'll go. And that's one of the proudest moments of my unselfishness, I would think, other than with Wendell and with Albert as far as a partnership, because then I allowed him to get his, I think at one time I may have hit the ball. No, I think one of the Bayless guys had bowled a full toss, and I just blocked it. Because if I'd have hit it, we could have got the squid to really run, but Albert wouldn't have got his century. And I just blocked it to let Albert get his century. So, when you talk about partnerships, it's playing for the team, not being selfish, and also building up some camaraderie. When Wendell went away to England with this, what I think it's Alf Gover, is it, Dexter? Gover?
You can ask Wendell that.
Alf
It
Gover,
is Sir Alf Gover, yes.
Yes, okay. No, I want to keep Wendell out of this one. And so when he came back, I was betting with him in County Cup, right? So I hit this ball. No, he hits the ball. I said, no. He says, Alan, it's not, no, it's waiting or wait on. I said, like, the ball went right to the guy. I shouldn't have to say anything. But no, because he's such an Englishman, he was trained in England. He came back. He was so professional. That really irritated me. Anyway.
Dexter, what was it like batting with Wendell?
Yeah, unfortunately, obviously, I don't. Yeah, there was a lot of talking. There was a lot of waiting on, or I'm still waiting. If you didn't get a response, right? Still waiting. Right, but all jokes aside, we have was a very small passage because of the injuries that Wendell suffered. But what we did have, I thought, was very good. And it's right that Wendell mentioned, adding a stroke ACs into his repertoire, because I recall the on drive off Rodney Fowler like it was yesterday. That went straight over my head for 6, right? And if I'm not mistaken, that might have brought up the 50 partnership, and then he came down in typical arrogant Wendell Smith fashion and walked on to me and said, see how it's done. right?
See, I didn't want to bring that up. I didn't want to bring stuff like that. But I'm
Yeah, I
glad
was
you done
done.
it.
So I
Yeah,
said,
that's
okay,
right.
I'm
could
glad
have,
you can commentate with us because you have an imagination also.
I speak some flesh, right? See how it's done. He brought up his 50. I said, well done. Let's carry on, right? And we went on. We had 100 partnership.
Who got out first, Dexter?
It was another winning draw. You got out first.
Okay.
You got out first. You wanted to keep on playing shots because you really knew and improved Randall Smith, right? So if you recall that St. George's Cup match team, right? The players that we had, there were a lot of expressive players in that side, right? If you go down the batting order, starting with Clay, with Charlie, with Mel, with Clevey, with Arnold Mendes, who were still in the team. Right? London and I's roles were, as I said earlier, see that shine off the ball. But as Mendel became more of a senior player, not in terms of the captaincy, because he was the leader, but senior in terms of age and looking at, I don't have to face Adrian King anymore. I'm going to dominate these fellas because comparatively, not Adrian King, sorry, the Coach Trotz and others, right? When you look at them and you look at the stature of the bowlers that we were facing, you could arguably say that it was down a level or two. Now the guys may not appreciate us saying that, but I would have much rather faced Perry Mabry than Coach Trott. Let's put it that way, right? So Vendel looked at that, and this is my estimation. He looked at that and said, "I'm going to dominate," and that's what he did. And he kept on playing shot after shot after shot until he was up, right? And we had a 100-run partnership. So we batted together for the first time was '95, yeah. At St. George. So you missed '93, you missed '94, you came back in '95, and you were the first one out. But when you got out, you weren't betting with me because if you recall, I got struck on the forearm by Rodney Fubler and retired hurt and came back.
How did that happen?
One just came off a length. I didn't have a forearm guard, and I got struck right around here. I went off, retired hurt, and then came back to complete my 50, right? And then you carried on, and number 3, I don't know if it was Clay or Arnold. I can't quite recall.
It was Arnold.
Yeah. So that's how that transpired. So you could say neither of us got out in that opening partnership. That would be the trivia. That would be a nice trivia question for years to come, right?
Well, we're going to take another commercial break. When we come back, Dennis, you're up.
Okay.
We're spotlighting our old friends Woodstock Farms, who started up 50 years ago in the belief that we need more trustworthy natural food sources. Starting with one product, their line, mostly certified organic, is now more than 250 strong in 10 categories. This month we're featuring accoutrements of the barbecue, for us the pinnacle of home cuisine and one of the few forms of restorative recreation now within our reach. Try Woodstock Organic Sweet Relish, Tomato Ketchup, Baby Kosher Dill Pickles, Sauerkraut, and Hickory and Original Barbecue Sauce. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
Okay,
welcome back.
welcome back. This is to all guys. So in preparation for your first cup match, let's take you back a little bit. What goes through your mind, knowing that like you're an opening batsman and preparing for, because I remember Randall coming in facing, like you said, because I've got these guys on the sheet, Al James, Kesa Edwards, Terry Burgess, Coach Trott. Like what goes through your mind as you're preparing for these guys in your first cup match as an opening batsman? What goes through your mind the night before, the morning off? How do you prepare and get ready for these guys?
Well, being I started first, I guess we can go chronologically, if that's fine with you, Dexter.
Yeah, that's fine.
I had the pleasure of opening batting with Dennis Wainwright at Wellington Oval, which was a treat in that I grew up as a little youngster throwing balls back from the boundary to Lloyd and Rupert Scotland, these guys. So I can just remember the noise and I guess the word that best describes it for me is the electric atmosphere that when we crossed that road down there by the clubhouse, and Dennis, of course, let me know in no uncertain words, "Oh, youngster, I'll be taking the first ball." Because obviously he was the senior batsman. I know what you want to say, Alan. But anyway, yeah. But anyway, I was relieved just to know that I didn't have that pressure. But that particular match, Randy Rayner was the opening bowler. And I believe Coach Rudd, who was really venomous. I scored 40. But I guess my abiding memory of that match was the fact that Clarence Parfitt took 9 of the 10 wickets in one innings, Dexter. 9 out of the 10 wickets. The final wicket was a runner where the person threw the ball to him at the bowler's end, and he had to run the person out, where he could have possibly taken all 10 wickets that were dismissed that inning. Somerset, I think, scored 73, something like that. And just watching how phenomenal he was. As far as preparations, I think I was I was very raw. So I tended not to overthink things then. And I didn't do a whole lot of.
Find that hard to believe.
I'm being honest with you, Dexter. Like later in my years, I started doing things like visualizing players like Pacer and Terry the night before from each end, and just visualization and picturing how they may try to attack me and things like that. But at that young age, when you're 16, that's why I really think, and this is something for you to think about. I believe anyway that batsmen tend to mature and improve as they age. I mean, you compare yourself at 18 or 19 to when you're 28 and 29, and all the little dynamics. Like I watched the guy get out today for West Indies, just like Jason Hilder, where the guy gave him a half volley. The next ball he pitched back about 6 inches. He followed through, hit the ball right to cover. And Robert Hines said to me in cup match, he said, "Smith, I'm going to give you your shot, and then I'm going to get you. Your best shot can be your worst enemy." He knew I like to cover drive. He put 2 out there, gave me 2 4s, and then he held 1 back, and I'm out caught and cover. So I'm saying that to say, Dexter, that as I matured in cricket, I learned some of the more intricacies of the game better, so that I could avoid getting dismissed. That's what I would say. But that's a good question. I don't know how you guys were with your beginnings, but I didn't feel nervous. I guess it's because of the fact that I was surrounded by veterans.
Yeah, I'm the same way. County Cup really set me in good stead playing cup match. The crowd, to be quite honest, I loved the crowd. I really did. It didn't bother me. I knew that. And even with Randy Horton, I didn't know a lot about him, to be quite honest. My only concern was Al James, because I knew he was quick. And one thing about Al James, he didn't take a long run. Like Terry Burgess, and I'll use Pacer for prime example. They used to come off a pretty long run. So you could almost see what they were going to do. But Al came off a shorter run, and because he was so powerfully built, all I knew I had to just look out for that quicker one from him, that he can push it through. And I kept saying to myself, here's a big guy. There's no way in heck he can bowl 20 overs. He's too big. I didn't think of him as someone that was fit and like a Pacer, a Terry Burgess and these guys, Adrian Keane. So I said to myself, as long as I can stay in there for the first 10 overs. And the other thing I was looking at, whenever I play County Cup, whenever I play a cup match, I always looked at the wicket. And only once, when I was playing, when I opened up that the wicket was damp. But we really done well that day. Randall, if you remember, Gladys Fogo bat Rudy Miners, that we would put 50 as an opening partner. I think we put the 160 something on a damp wicket against some of the fiercest bowlers we could face. So that's the only thing for me. Lionel Thomas reminded me some time ago that he actually, because he didn't stay far from my house in St. David's, and he actually took me up. And he says I was shaking, but I think it was only jesting me. I wasn't shaking, that's for sure. But I felt quite confident, to be quite honest, in that. I went on to make, how much I make it first innings, Earl? 45, 47?
40, what is it, 44 or 45?
And 45, I think. And then 45. the second innings, it was 40 odd. So I was right at home. Yeah, I was really right at home. And I felt like I could go on and do this. That 2-day game suited me well until Wendell cut my cup match career short. But other than that, I think I could have been up there as well. Yeah,
But
Dexter.
Dexter, one thing about you, you didn't get out in the 40s very often. You knew how to push on and get a big score. Why would you be getting out in the 40s and avoid your payday, Alan?
Well, because as you stated just a few moments ago, you mature as you get older, and I wasn't mature enough. But you didn't give me enough the opportunity to mature because you cut my cut match career short. You and St. George's. But nevertheless, I won't dwell on that one.
Dexter?
So just to observe proper protocol, I need to remind Randall that I'm not hosting this show, so you can address Earl and Dennis.
No problem.
As far as cup match is concerned, I mean, I came in as a mature person. I mean, these fellas had the benefit of starting out their careers as teenagers. I was 32. In terms of preparation, it was just a case of making sure that I was going to get the right rest. By then, I had already developed the visualization that Randall speaks of in relation to the bowlers that I'm about to face the next day. I mean, so I did that sort of like from my mid to late 20s. That was largely with Western Stars and then with St. George's, to basically say this is a personal battle between me and Terry Burgess, me and Pacer. I was built by Pacer this way. Make sure that doesn't happen again, and also be mindful of what they want to give you, and then give you a bit more to get your wicket early. But it was relaxation, a good night's rest, and then familiarizing yourself, getting in, forgetting about the crowd, right? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I never ever played in front of the crowd throughout my cricket career. I mean, I think that's a detriment. I think it's good for after the match, but outside of that, you ought to avoid them like the plague, because anything that can distract you, all it takes is a ball, right? And you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
But
just looking at the numbers.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Earl.
Yeah.
My very first cup match opened up with Randall Smith. Here I am, we're down in the change room, putting the pads on. And you know what he says to me? He says, "Nah, Alan, I'm the senior around here. I'm taking the first ball." And I've been scarred for life, Earl, because of that. So that's why every chance I get, I have to remind him who's your lead commentator. And I should go first. And also,
Well,
I loved it. I loved the crowd, and I also remember that young lady in the yellow dress as well. But anyway, that's another story. Go ahead.
But as far as first ball goes, because Randall, when we played together, he was coming back into the team. I was already there. So first ball went to me. And first ball went to me basically from the moment that I got promoted to opening bat at Western Stars. I can't remember which year it was because I started the season in the middle order. I was coming from Devonshire Rec, not establishing the team, so you had to earn your spurs, so to speak. And then the moment the captain at the time, I believe it was Gary Brinkman, they determined that I was going to open. It was first ball from there. So it was whether I was playing for Stars throughout my career at St. George's, throughout playing for Bermuda. I played overseas after I left the country. Always first ball. I just felt it was an honor and a challenge. It's my inner Wendell Smith, right? Stick out your chest and let them know who's in charge.
I never
Well,
got that opportunity.
You know
I'm
what?
glad you brought up international. I'm glad you brought up international because having the opportunity to play in the biggest games in Bermuda is one thing, but also having the opportunity to represent the country is nothing bigger than that. So Wendell, moving into the international realm of things, how did your start? How did that journey start for you?
It started first with the Bermuda Wanderers, where Alan Richardson and I were both invited to join the Wanderers on a tour to Pennsylvania with, again, I think Blades and Eldon Rain and some of the Rupert Scotland, etc. And that was a wonderful experience. And then, of course, it was the ICC in 1982 where we went to the final. And in my total career, that was the only time I've been on a cricket field and been extremely nervous. In fact, I was never really nervous at cup match, but that particular day, knowing that what was at stake, Bermuda possibly going to the World Cup, proper if we would have beaten Zimbabwe. I came on the field when Adrian King sustained an injury, and so I was really, really nervous. So internationally, there was the '86 and '90 World Cup. But I'm glad you asked that because I've been taking some banter from Dexter Smith. I didn't expect that tonight, but I'm gonna take this. I want you to hear this, Alan Richardson. Dexter Smith was just like I might have impacted your cup match career. Unfortunately, Alan, because of the type of level of players we had at St. George's and the quality, my international career was cut short by Dexter Smith because I had the displeasure of having him be my roommate, Earl and Dennis. And let me tell you this. Alan and I were picked to be the opening bats for Bermuda in Kingston, Pegasus Hotel, and for some reason, but you know what? They figure put the two opening bats together, they can chat about the game and all. I'm picked Dexter's reserve. This is fact. So Dexter, please don't interject.
I will correct you.
I'm trying to get some sleep. Dexter turns the light on. Next thing I know, I'm hearing computer clicking. He decides to write a story back to the Royal Gazette. Then I figure, okay, he's finished his story. I'll get some sleep. He turns the TV on, and I can remember it was ESPN because I wasn't familiar with how they roll some script down but the bottom of the screen for ESPN telling you about things that are happening. Then I figure, okay, I can get some sleep. He finishes watching some TV. The newspaper starts rustling. I picked up my mattress, true story, in Pegasus Hotel and put it in the closet and tried to go sleep in the closet around the corner. Next day, Franklin Rose, first ball of the match, Wendell Smith bowled for 0. Alan, remember? And I told the commentary, the audience this past week that Alan and I both got ducks in that match. Dexter, of course, came into the team and mission accomplished for him. Dexter, I'm going to tell you the truth. You're a wonderful guy. But Alan, you know how you were talking about being unselfish and letting Albert get his century?
Right.
Well, he made sure I didn't get any sleep that night. But his excuse would be, I had to write a story back to the Royal Gazette. So he's typing away while I'm trying to sleep. Dexter, is that a lie, or were you my roommate at Pegasus Hotel?
So am I allowed to speak now? So if I can speak, I think elements of that are correct.
Elements
of that are correct, right? But the rest is rather fictional.
I got a docket.
No. Oh, you got a duck.
And you turn the TV on.
We're not going to dispute that.
Okay,
but I think that had more to do with the pace of Franklin Rose. And that lightning quick pitch. You remember in those days, to behind the car, you could see your reflection of the pitch. So you knew it was going to be coming off, right? But if I go back to that fateful night, as Wendell wants to describe it, yes, I was reading the newspaper because I'm an avid reader. I like broadsheets, so now we've got all the smartphones, but I still prefer the rustle of newspaper to hand. So I did read the newspaper. Did watch a bit of television, and may or may not have written a story. But and also, I mean, just because you started off wrong, so let's right. We were not at the Pegasus Hotel. We were at the Millennium Hotel.
Okay.
Right, it's a different hotel entirely. Right, Pegasus is like 4-star. BCB was not paying for us to be in a 4-star hotel. Right, you recall Millennium, Noel Gibbons' great quote. It's rice again today, rice every day. Rice. Right? But anyway.
Okay, so that was one fact wrong. I guess the Pegasus is where I went with the Department of Education. You're correct.
Perhaps, right. So we were at the Millennium Hotel.
Right.
The Millennium Hotel, for various reasons that cannot be described on this show, will remember the Bermuda team for a very long time. It was unfortunate, and probably was an unwise decision for them to pair us together. I mean, yes, two opening bets, it made a bit of sense, but in terms of our personalities, absolutely not, because I was going to be up for a good bit of the time, whether I was playing or not, because I must read my newspaper. I must catch up with what's going on in the world, right? And I'm a bit hazy on whether or not I was writing a story the night before a game. The night, I mean, if I'm going to write a story, it should have been written long before then, right? If you consider that Jamaica is 2 hours behind us,
Okay.
right? So that would have been well past deadline for the Royal Gazette in those days. Um, but yeah, I just thought it was unfortunate. I think the issue is with your injury. We want to throw it a bit forward by 24 hours, right? Where it came to a head was you having to run from the slip cordon on 3 successive balls to third man. And I think on the second or third run there, and you should recall this, Alan, because you played in the match, that is when you pulled up. And that's when you declared to me that that's it. And then you informed the management that was it.
So you're going to blame my duck on my knee injury. That's what you're saying.
Oh no! The duck came before the injury. I mean, the duck was you missed the ball.
Because we opened, we betted first.
Yeah, you were done
we
for
didn't, we didn't feel first. We betted first and started with the duck. But anyway, enough of that.
No, give Franklin Rose his due, right? I mean,
Oh, jeez, that was one of the quickest balls I've ever seen at the
Yeah,
Strikers Stand that he built Randall, and it was a Yorker, and it was really fast.
yes,
I didn't like these two. I didn't have they had a much more of a illustrious international career than what I did. The one time that I did, and I think it was because playing County Cup, and then Cup match, it's like I've done it. Unfortunately, like I just felt like I've done so. The interest wasn't there. There wasn't something inside of me at that time. I obviously learned a little later, and I think maybe that's happened to some of these guys today. It's like, to play county, it's part of your community. To play cup match is part of your heritage. It's St. George's. You're from the east end of the island, so to speak. So that gives you the impetus to really get out there and try. But to actually go and I just didn't feel it that much. But the one time I did pursue that, I ended up going to Kenya. And of course, Daxter. So it looks like he's ruined Randall, and he's ruined my career as well, international career, because I was slated to open, but Daxter comes along and he hits the form of his life. Now, I've often looked at Daxter as probably, in my estimation, and Randall, you could correct me if I'm wrong, probably the ugliest bat you ever want to see as an opener. He didn't have no flair. He didn't have no Ricky Hare flair. To me, it was like awkward. But that so-and-so, he hit the form of his life, man. And he, he really, really batted his socks off in that particular series. And I never got to play, to be quite honest. But, I that didn't mean I sort of sat back. I still put the time and energy in and put the work in. But he, so as far as my international career, and then also I still have that picture of Wendell and I when we played our first match for the Bermuda Wanderers. I have that picture. Wendell, do you remember how much we put on that day? 90, I think it was 96. We were playing in Philadelphia against a lot of the ex players from the Caribbean. But that's international. Go ahead,
sorry, Alan, I'm going to interject because I didn't touch on that, and I don't know how much time you guys have left. I've got to get an addition.
Make it short.
I'll try my best. But if I can just speak to that, because it saddened me, not a lot, but a little bit, that you didn't get to see any kind of action, because our selection, if I recall, in Kenya was rather inflexible. And it ultimately hurt us, especially in the bowling department, because Pacer and Terry got tired at the wrong time. But where it pertains to my selection, I was surprised as anyone. But I think it's all had its origins in Jamaica, right? So with Wendell now corrupt and just being a passenger on tour, you recall we went to Discovery Bay to play the second time against Jamaica, and my belief, Alan. My belief is that innings there, because no one really came out to us and said, okay, the order has changed now, and that's just going to be the number 2 opener with Albert, right? Because when we went there, it was the three of you, and then me, because I was just there in Jamaica as a standby player. I still wasn't in the squad, right? I was there as a standby player, and that innings, right? We went to Discovery Bay, in Ocho Rios, and played on a new pitch, and I think it was a combination of Albert and Bull Swan and Hop Tucker, was it? Is it Hop Tucker?
Yes.
And Hop Tucker saw in that match that changed their minds, because once we got to Africa, I played in the first warm-up game, and we played it at Nairobi, right? So that's the closest thing you can get to English in terms of either English conditions or just in and around the club, like an English type atmosphere. And this fella came trundling up to me and bowled me, a slow in swinger that I played all around. And I said, I walked off, and that was for duck, right? So the first tour match, out for duck. And I had been selected instead of Alan, with Albert as my opening partner. And I walked off the pitch that innings thinking, what have you done? You screwed yourself here, right? But we went back into practice and went back in the nets, and I was still hitting it really good. And for whatever reason, with no one coming to me, they retained the faith. And then that very first match against West Africa, I made an unbeaten 50. And then from there, the rest was history. There was no real need to change that. So it meant that Alan didn't play. But if I go back even farther than that, because Alan has admitted himself to some extent that he's not a one-day player, right? He's not, terribly expressive. He came into the squad late. This was all after Ricky Hill.
After you wrote a column about Ricky Hill football, and they dropped him. Remember that? Is that true, Wendell?
No, it's not true. That's incorrect.
I know you got to unmute.
No, leave him muted.
Alan, you didn't see the picture and the article in the paper?
Oh, man,
Maybe we need to ask Ricky Hill come on your next show, Earl.
Yeah, well, Ricky may have an entirely different view, but we've talked about this several times, Ricky and I. So that was I don't know how the squad subsequent to us have trained, but all the squads I've been involved with, that was as well drilled and as fit a squad as I can recall.
Absolutely.
And on this particular Saturday, there was a mandatory, right? Don't poke around. It is a mandatory session where you're not seeing a ball. It's all about the physical, right? It was all about the physical, which included a run out. So training was at Devonshire, and also it was a run out North Shore, North Shore, Black Watch Pass, back. And then when you get there, it's circuit running for the best part of an hour. It was a mandatory session. And the knives were out for Ricky when he did not show up, right? And we were all recovering. It took about like a day to recover. And we found out that Ricky had turned out for the reserve team, the Masters team, or whatever that division was, for North Village that day in Bernard Park. And someone told the Mid-Ocean News. No, they told the Mid-Ocean News, because I was working for the Gazette. I was working for the Gazette at that time. I moved to the Mid-Ocean News after the tournament, and someone showed the Mid-Ocean News, and that's got to someone. So clearly, I didn't write the story. The Mid-Ocean News wrote the story, and but the cricket board knew anyway. They got wind of it even before that hit publication. And Ricky found himself axed, which was unfortunate, because fantastic player, right? When you look at all the players, like Wendell, I thought was the best of our generation. He may not feel that himself because of a little bit of occasional low self-esteem, which seems hard to imagine, right? It seems very hard to imagine. But I felt technically that he was the best that there was. And he just needed a bit more confidence, but yeah, because all the shots were there, and they were all there, the way that you wanted to see them play it, right?
Can you speak more to his lack of confidence?
No, I can't, because I think he can only. I mean, that's how it came across to me, right? I mean, he could probably do that better than I can, but I just felt that for what's in that pocket there, and then what ended up being in that pocket, it didn't really make sense for the ability that he has. And we had some good players then, right, with the Charlies and the Knowles and Clay, the youngsters, because the youngsters were the heartbeat of the team, right? So you had Clay and Dean Marnus, and you had Dal Hollis,
Hollis.
who was the off spinner, who also, I mean, we took 15 guys there, right? And 3 or 4 of them never got on the pitch, which in hindsight is criminal.
Jeff
right?
Jeff
Maybe-
Richardson was there.
yeah, but Jeff played one game though.
Yeah.
He played one game, right? And but Quentin Birch never got on the pitch. Dal never got on the pitch. You never got on the pitch. And especially from a Quentin Birch standpoint, we just needed to rotate those guys in and out so that we could have them fit and firing for the first semifinal against Kenya, right?
And you know what, Dexter? Something you brought up has helped me remember that 1982 tour, and one of the mistakes I felt that we made, and that's the fact that we overplayed some of our premier players, so that when it came time for the finals, some of our senior players like Joe Bailey, he was struggling to walk from one end of the crease to the other, because we were there for about a month and played an inordinate number of warm-up games. I mean, we were playing 3 warm-up games in the week prior to the matches, and then continued to play warm-up games even when the tournament started. And sometimes you can, just like people can overtrain in a gym, I felt that's one of the errors we made.
Yeah, because we had loads of them, if you remember, Alan. We had loads of practice matches.
Yes.
And it was notable because where I used to field was sort of like around the corner, backward point, and I could tell the way that Dean was taking the ball, how much Pacer and Terry were putting in, and was underwhelming in the lead up to the tournament. When the tournament started, all you were hearing was pop. Jeez, Pacer, Terry, these guys are pinging, right? And then as we got to the latter stages, it wasn't so much that, right? I mean, as you got to the better teams, Dean wasn't catching the ball because the ball was hitting the middle of the bat and going to all parts, right? But it was noticeable, right? And it's unfortunate, but we ultimately got there with the 2017, right? So at least Bermuda can say that we got there once, but really that team should have been a World Cup team. It really should have been, and we would have been facing the likes of, I think Alan Donald was in his pump band. If you recall, if you remember the UAE skipper, Alan, who famously went into the World Cup and refused to put a helmet on, and Alan Donald said, "Okay, we'll see, we'll see."
All right.
Right.
Dennis, any parting question for them?
Yeah, I just want to know the big debate goes on constantly in relation to 2020 versus open cricket. What are your opinions on both, and what are your preferences?
Well,
we
for
can
me,
start with you. We can start with you, Dexter. We'll start with
that's
Dexter.
Me?
yeah.
Oh, well, as an umpire, 2020 is it? You could have me out there all day at 60-something years old. But it's a difficult one, and you probably don't have enough time on this show. We have a different culture of cricketer right now. And I could say there's a split of good and bad about that. I would like to see a more stable cricket that Bermuda is playing. We tend to chop and change. 2020 cricket can be very exciting. It is franchise cricket is all over the world now, and it's with a view to bringing in new revenue streams, families, young children, so on and so forth. And you see they've just finished 100 over in England, which has gone down really, really well. But that said, man, we look at some of our players and cup matches. Perfect example of it. And you see the lack of discipline in the cricket, right? It was some of it was really frightening, right? That there's a shot play to almost every ball, right? The lead, which is also meant to be a shot, seems to have gone into the wilderness, right? And I know the guys at the cricket board, Stephen Douglas, Alan Douglas is involved as well these days. They're agonizing over that right balance. What we do need to find some kind of a balance so that T20 does not become the be all and end all. I mean, especially if we consider cup match as the marquee piece in our domestic summer, right? You need to have longer form cricket, so that means even a bit more 50 over cricket, whereby because 50 over cricket right now to me seems like open cricket the way T20 is being played. Um, it, the I think if we can find a way to get a fair bit more of that going, especially once we get past the once we can have um, a summer that is normal, as close to normal as possible in this COVID present, then we will be on the way forward. I think only after that, after we have at least a season, possibly two, of a full 50 over campaign, that we can properly look at the possibility of open cricket, even if it's only for a section of the season. Uh, because if you go back in the history of our domestic programs, right, because cricket is run by the clubs, and these clubs are very finicky and lots of self interest going on at the clubs. And one year, open cricket, don't fancy it the next year. Back to limited overs, back to open, back to there's no real consistency and no length to it since I was in sort of like my 30s, really. Before then, I think when Reggie Pearman was heavily involved in the administration of cricket at Bailey, even though he had, a lot of critics, I thought he did a lot of good work for cricket in Bermuda. Um, we had that consistency, so that you knew you were going to go out and you were going to be in Alan Richardson. You were going to take up an hour and a bit of time, and if I only have 20, that means that you had some powerful guys behind you. That's St. Davids, didn't you, Alan? With
Yeah,
the Arthurs and the and
absolutely.
the and the Jeffs and so on and so forth, who can accelerate and get you where you needed to be in a reasonable amount of time. Now, oh my gosh, and we got some good players. Don't get me wrong. We have some really decent players, and I mean I've returned to umpiring. I mean I've had some shortages here at work, which haven't allowed me to do so. But I umpired bit more last season than just a few games this season, and even I'm looking at first division and looking at some of the young players there that have some genuine talent. Um, um, but they just need some continuity, whether it's going to be T20 or whether it's going to be the coaching that's required. But they need that continuity instead of the chopping and changing.
Well,
All right, Alan.
I'm going to keep it very brief because Daxa said it all. To be quite honest, I look at T20 as just entertainment. I don't see any development of our younger players at all in T20. I really don't, and that's only because what I've watched here recently. I've taken the time. Let me go see some because that's all the cricket that's on. And when I see some of the T20 matches and some of the players and the indiscipline, the bowling, so forth and so on, it cringes me. So we definitely need the longer form of the game. I would even go so far as to say 50 instead of 50 over matches, 60 over matches. We need to start developing these players to play the longer version of the game, because then if you have a solid foundation from learning it, then you can add a bit of flair in these T20s and the reverse sweeps and so forth and so on. But you need to learn the principles and the basics of, and that goes for any sport. Most players, top players, they're excellent with their technique and the basics, the foundations that you have to play in order to succeed. Then you can add your flair to it after. So to me, Our cricket, we need the longer version of the game. The T20 stuff is just there for entertainment.
Randall?
I concur totally with what both individuals have said. I look at T20 again, like Alan, as entertainment, and it's about money and excitement and a short day out. I like the idea of having 60 over matches. In fact, I would love to see the Eastern County come around and have both teams bet the similar amount of overs, being 60 overs. But two other things that go along with this development, because youngsters can't really develop properly with 20 overs, especially if you have really good players. Think about it. Your top 4 batsmen, somebody in there should be able to bet the whole 20 overs, almost there. So people who are betting 5, 6, 7 may not even get a hit. But two things that are missing in today's cricket is, one, we benefited from the police team of that era when you had Roger Blades, the Greenwiches, the Ansel Hudsels, etc. Tyrone Smith, exactly. And so that police team added a lot, and the loss of them. And the other thing, we had an influx of tours coming to Bermuda regularly. And I was just sitting here writing down. I can remember Devin Malcolm being here, Chandrasekhar, Michael Holding up at Rangers, and then you had Tendulkar, Mark Waugh, and Alan Border. We had the opportunity to play against these guys. And so, and Dennis, you would know this from playing a great football, and I got to give you your due as a part of that Trojans dynamic team, Silver City. When you're playing against top class opposition, you have to raise your game. If not, you'll be embarrassed. And so that's something that's really been missing in this modern era. So I'm looking forward to the day when this pandemic's over and we can start having longer forms of the game, because there are some exciting youngsters who are out there, and I got a chance to see some of them this year while coaching in George in the trial matches. There's a little boy, Sarai Tomlinson. I'm looking forward to seeing Keith Worms, Logan Jones. There's a number of them. And then I'm looking forward to Marcus Scotland maybe coming back in a couple of years' time. And but I have to applaud Delray Rawlins, because he's a youngster who had that passion and is now reaping dividends. And he's somewhat forgotten and not talked about much. But Dax, I got to give you kudos on how your paper have continued to highlight his progress. So,
well, I'm actually talking about him now.
Yeah.
In between segments. No, he played his first game tonight for a while.
Yeah.
You know, he's just won the 100. But they have such a strong team, so he needed to perform to keep his place. He lost his place after the first match, never got it back, but he came out tonight and did well. And so they're in finals day.
And here we are, got a youngster that's playing at Lord's. A couple of weeks ago, I saw him out as reserve, and just being in that setting. Can you imagine if he was to come back one day and just share his talent with Bermuda just on a brief tour, if for some reason he had that opportunity? I think that cup match crowd would be really treated to something. But anyway, that's wishful thinking.
No, well, I see Delray representing St. George's once more before he retires. I mean, he's only 24, right?
Right.
And your professional career is only going to go so long. It just determines on where he's going to make his home, whether he's going to stay in England or whether he comes back. And I would imagine if he does come back, I mean, you're a long time retired, right? So I could see him. I mean, Christ, Charlie Marshall was playing cup match at the age of 48. I mean, give me a break. I'm sure Delray can come back in his mid 30s, if that, and represent St. George's for a good 5 years or more.
But one of the things I'll give Charlie Marshall credit for is he's kept himself supremely fit, riding that bike, and even in his latter years, fitter than most of today's players. One thing I did neglect to say, Dennis, because you talked about that question about when we first entered the game and preparation. One of the things I always like to do was, there's a little beach just to the left of Fort St. Catherine. Let's go down and have a swim prior to any really major game. I just found that really would wake me up. And walking around the airport as a 16-year-old, looking at different tiles on the floor and shadowing shots. I don't know if either of you ever did stuff like that, but just had some little habits that because I think if people would have seen me, they thought, "Is this guy lost his mind? Like, what's he doing?" But
It would have been right to think so.
Gilbando was always like a philosophical type guy. He wants to sit out Fairy Reach and watch his sun go down and all that type of stuff. So he's always been like that.
That sounds
Ronnie.
just about right, Al.
anyway,
Well, I would hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the game is going to get shorter because it is going to be introduced into the Olympics, and they're going to do tan-tan. They're doing tan-tan at the Commonwealth Games next year, and that's women and ICC and America, as well as the USA Olympic Committee, are pushing to have tan-tan in the Olympics in 2028. So that format will be introduced sometime very soon. And of course, as we know, there will be no West Indies team, so everyone will have an opportunity to qualify individually. So
Nice.
that's how that will go. That format will go. So the plan moving forward, once it's approved, there will be 10-10 cricket at the IOC level, and I'm pretty sure America will gravitate to that more than the T20 because it's a shorter version. You can get commercials in, and people's attention span, because that's all money marketing. That's all that is. So many more games in a short period of time. I think that's where they'll gravitate to. But gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been a good laugh, very entertaining, very informational. And we want to say to you guys, thank you very much again. And we look forward to possibly having you on again at some point in time with some other folks just to reminisce about your time playing the sport of cricket, representing St. George's, representing Bermuda, also playing county, and just enjoying the time in the middle that you guys had together. And again, thank you very much.
I would just like to add also, we're all soldiers boys too,
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
None of you brought that up.
No, I did mention that.
He just
I said
didn't.
it briefly.
He wasn't specific with regards to which school it was. He just said we all went to school together. So,
Okay.
See, that was he left out the key point. That was a little slip up with his journalistic abilities not being specific.
Oh no, not Daxter. He didn't make a mistake, surely.
No,
Not Daxter.
in hindsight, because I wanted to protect both of you, right? Because especially with the deficiencies that we've come
See what I'm
across.
talking about?
There's no way.
You know what it truly was?
There's no way that
He was busy writing a story while he should have been concentrating on his
So
interview.
Randall, there is some credence to him writing a story and keeping you up all night.
And he's been rude to his guests, his interviewers by being interviewed. When you and I's talking, he's not listening. He's just typing his story for his world.
I always listen to you, Randall, even when I don't want to, because I never know when there is something that is going to be of value coming out. Right?
And by the way,
you have to pay attention.
Before we go, I'll publicly apologize. Alan, I bought him some Jamaican
Oh my
food.
God.
Listen to me, and slipped in. I put some crab salad and some shrimp salad with it. He thought it was chicken salad, and apparently I didn't know this. He's allergic to seafood. He had a reaction. So publicly, Dex, I'll say I apologize. So I guess that's why you haven't been answering your phone for the last 3 weeks when I try to call you.
The man tried to kill me. Nothing, because everyone who's paid any kind of attention to me over the many years, I've told them that I can't have shrimp, I can't have lobster, I can't have crab. So we spend a lot of time talking about cricket, because when I deal with cricket from a social standpoint. And I am a proud West Indian supporter. So we have a lot of battles in relation to basically supporting your people, because I consider those to be our people. When I say our people, because we are, as Black Meridians, we are the descendants of West Indians.
Alan, wasn't Earl trying to wrap up the show?
Yes, he was trying to wrap up, but he hasn't cut me off yet. So Wendell thought that he could play to my inner West Indian and show me that he's adaptive to the culture, and I'm gonna get you some Jamaican food and the kind of food he talked about. I'm thinking, well, that's not what I would normally eat at this hour, but Wendell, you're going the extra yard, appreciate it. Right? And then right after it didn't take much, was just one bite, because that looks a bit odd, right? Because that's not, I asked him ackee and saltfish, right, with a little callaloo, plantain, right, a little fried dumpling. That is your Jamaican breakfast, your full Jamaican breakfast, right? And he thought he'd be a bit clever. He thought he'd be a bit Wendell.
Kind,
right?
And giving you some
kind, and giving me the one food that I cannot have, right? The one food, and it lasted in my system all of a minute and a half, perhaps.
So I apologize for the diarrhea and the vomiting.
No diarrhea. Remember, this is a family show, right? This is a family show, right? So there was no diarrhea, but things came out that were not meant to come out, right? And I said to myself, that Wendell Smith, right? Unbelievable.
Oh boy.
So I had to communicate through his wife, because I couldn't communicate to him. I was too furious. So I reached out to Lenore and said, listen, I'm between minds whether I need to make this a formal complaint to the police, right? Because this here is blatant, because surely Wendell Smith, of all people, right, of all the conversations we've had, he must know. And the thing is, he camouflaged with the lobster, right? And the shrimp so well.
It was crab salad.
The crab and the shrimp so well that for that split second, I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't know why Wendell's put chicken in here. This different kind of looking chicken, but I'm gonna. And I took one bite.
He doesn't know the difference between crab salad and chicken salad. But anyway, Earl, thank you for a wonderful time, Alan. Dennis.
Yes, guys, it's been a pleasure, man.
You guys enjoy your night, man.
Absolutely.
All right.
Take
Take
care.
care.